Hello and welcome back to Continuous Integration using Jenkins by Edureka. This is module 8 of this video series, and in this video we are going to talk about maintain and use Jenkins. Objectives of this module would be to understand how to maintain Jenkins, what are the do's and don'ts of Jenkins, also we can say what are the best practices in Jenkins, and then we will talk about how to backup Jenkins, migrate it, and move it from one server to another if needed. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing would be to understand how to do monitoring in Jenkins. So monitoring disk space, why it is important? Because when we talk about builds, when we talk about Jenkins, we are talking about multiple builds of a job, and each build takes some space, and over the period of time it grows and grows and grows, and it might be possible that it makes your Jenkins server very slow, and it is very important therefore to maintain and do log rotation and make sure that you remove the old and unnecessary builds from the Jenkins master. So when a project configuration is loaded in Jenkins, it analyzes the build records. So if a build job with 1000 archive builds is going to take a longer duration, of course, to load than one with, let's say, only 50 archived builds. So to keep a cap on disk usage, you need to limit the number of builds a project maintains in its history. So we have this option called discard old builds when you are doing the job configuration. And when you check this option, you get further options in order to how many days of the builds you want to keep, how many numbers of the last builds you want to keep, and so on. So the problem with discarding old builds is that the build history is also lost at the same time. So the items that take up the most disk space are the build artifacts, for example, jar file or var files and so on. So build history is mostly XML log files which don't take up too much space. So when we click on advanced button, Jenkins will allow you to discard the artifacts, but not the build data. So this is a great option to put a cap on disk usage, but full scope of build metrics should be provided. So before we move to the next slide, let's take a look at what exactly we are talking about here. So here I am on my Jenkins main page, and if I go to any of the projects, so let's say if I go to Maven project and click on configure. So as you can see here, I have this option called discard old builds. If I put a check here, it further gives me options, and I can mention that how many days I want to keep the builds. So let's say I put 5, and how many number of builds I want to keep. So let's say I want to keep the last 10 builds. If I click on advanced, I further get options how many days to keep the artifacts. So it says that if not empty, artifacts from builds older than this number of days will be deleted, but the logs, history, reports, etc. for the build will be kept. Similarly, maximum number of builds to keep with artifacts. Once again, if it is not empty, only up to this number of builds have their artifact retained. So again, if you want to, let's say, limit this out, you can make it 5, make it 10. It's up to us how many we want to keep. So let's say first 10, maybe last 10, last 20, last 30 should be good enough. So if we have some jobs which are running on a daily basis or maybe multiple times on a daily basis, so it would be a good idea to keep the number of builds to put a check on it, right? So maybe last 30, last 40, last 50 builds should be good enough for us. So in this case, let's put everything as 10. And if I save, and let's say if I click on build now. So as you can see here, if you notice here, I have build number 3 has been removed. So 1, 2, 3 have been removed, and I have 4th onwards. So let's say if I do the build now again, let's give it a couple of seconds. And if I refresh the page again, as you can see, the 4th build has been removed from the list and 5th onwards I have. So at any given point in time, I have only the last 10 builds in my system. So that's how you keep a check on the number of builds, and this is basically to help save on the disk space of your Jenkins master. So one more way to keep a check on disk usage is to use this plugin called disk usage plugin. So Jenkins provides a plugin by this name, which is known as disk usage plugin, to record and report the amount of disk space used by the projects. So you can think of as one of the monitoring tools to understand what kind of disk space you have, and if needed, you can do a cleanup of your Jenkins master. It basically helps to fix projects that are using too much of disk space. And what we will do, let's take a look at how do we install the disk usage plugin, and then what exactly it shows on a screen for us. This is how the screen will look like. So it will show the disk usage trend, what kind of usage is happening. You can filter with what kind of builds you want to see and basically how old or how recent the build you want to check out. And apart from that, you can see projects which are taking most of the space. It will be sorted in the manner by the project which is taking most of the space right at the top. So basically top 5 or top 10 projects will be shown on a screen which are taking most of the space. So it also adds a disk usage link on the Manage Jenkins screen. So that is where you can actually go and click, and then it will show you all these details which we just saw in the previous screen. And as we spoke, this list is sorted by overall disk usage. So the projects using the most disk space right at the top. And to keep the space needed by a project's history under control, you need to limit the number of builds being kept for a project, and by being careful about the artifacts that are being sorted or that are being stored. So here I am on my Jenkins server once again. So let's go to Manage Jenkins page. And if you notice here on the main page, you don't see anything by disk usage here at the moment. So just keep that in mind. And once we come back, so let's click on Manage Plugins and let's go to Available Plugins. Available tab we need to click. And in the filter box, we need to type disk usage. And as you can see here, this is the plugin which we are talking about. If we open this link in another tab to understand what exactly this plugin is for. So this will give us all the important information about this plugin. So as you can see here, this plugin records disk usage, and then it gives you the screenshot, and you can go to individual jobs to check out how exactly the disk usage trend has been going so far. And then it shows all the logs and all the releases, and if there was any bug fix which was done. So these are the 4 dependencies for this plugin. So Bouncy Castle, Command Agent Launcher, JDK, Mailer, and all of them should be actually already installed, but we will take a look. And as we know already that if there is any dependency and if it is not installed, we need not worry about it because Jenkins will take care of it. So just put a check mark over here and click on Install Without Restart, because once again, if there is any restart required, Jenkins will let us know that we have to restart the server. So as we can see here, it says success with a blue circle, and it also tells me that you can start using the installed plugin right away. So if I just do a refresh, go back to the home page. So now as you can see here, I have this new button coming up called disk usage. And if I click on this, as you can see, it is showing a similar graph which we saw in our screenshot on the slideshow. And as of now, there is no job being shown. So if I just click on this record builds per usage, and once I refresh, as you can see here, it shows me all the projects, from top to bottom, and the 5 projects which are taking most of the space. So if you see here, Maven project is taking about 1 MB of space. Chef job is 844 KB. Maven build is 123 KB. So in my case, since it is a lab Jenkins server and with very less number of total builds for all the jobs, so it is showing hardly 2 MB, which is quite okay for me. However, in production Jenkins master servers, it is very important. It gives you a very high level overview, and you can directly see in a single console which are the jobs which are taking most of the space for your Jenkins master, and accordingly you can do a cleanup for those projects. So it is showing me what kind of disk usage is being shown here if I click on any of those projects. So the next thing to understand would be how to monitor the server load. So Jenkins provides a built-in monitoring of server activity. You don't need to install any plugin for this. This is basically pre-installed check which comes in with this one. So we need to go to Manage Jenkins, and there should be one option called Load Statistics. This displays a graph of the server load over time for the master. And this graph basically keeps track of 3 metrics. The first one is total number of executors. The second option is number of busy executors. So the executors which are actually doing something. And then the queue length. So basically how long it is taking for each job to finish off. So the total number of executors is being shown by the blue line, and it includes the executors on the master and on the slave nodes combined. In our case, if I go back, so I don't have any slave at the moment. I have removed it, which I used in the previous videos. But let's say you have 2 executors on the master and 2 executors on one of the slaves. So the total number of executors will be 4 here in this case. Now, this may vary when slaves are brought on and offline, and can be a useful indicator of how well the dynamic provisioning of slave nodes is working. So basically what we mean is that if you have virtual machine or nodes permanently configured as slaves, if you remember, there's an option called permanent agent. So if you're using that, then it is fine. However, it may vary if you're using, let's say, Docker containers as your nodes or slave builds. So in those situations, it will vary because Docker containers by nature are ephemeral and they are spun up only when you need to run a job, and then once the job is complete, it is supposed to be deleted or removed from the Jenkins master. So this is dynamic in nature, right? So dynamic provisioning, and that is the reason it might be different. So the number of busy executors would be shown with the help of the red line, and it is the number of executors that are busy executing builds at that point in time. So of course, red line will be there only for that time period available when there was some job was being executed on any of the executors actually. So you need to make sure that enough spare capacity is available to handle sudden peaks in build jobs. So basically you need to have separate or enough capacity. You can't use your Jenkins server 100% of the time or 100% at any given point in time. And in case needed, you need to add more executors on slave nodes. And that is especially in case when all the executors are permanently occupied running build jobs. So one option would be to either add more executors or you need to add more slave nodes. Either one of them should help you in managing your Jenkins capacity. And if you talk about the queue length, which is basically the gray line, it shows the number of build jobs waiting for execution. So when all the executors are building other jobs, build jobs are queued. So let's say if a job had to be queued for maybe 1 minute or maybe let's say 5 minutes before it starts executing. So because it will start executing only once there is a executor which is free or which is available. So let's say if that waiting period is 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then the queue length will become 10 minutes as well. And queue length does not include jobs which are waiting for an upstream build to complete, because that is not exactly seen as a waiting period. That's basically a triggering. So it starts or it gets calculated from the time when the job has been triggered, but it is still waiting because executors are not free at that point in time, not because there is an upstream project which is supposed to be finished. Before we take a look at backups, let's see what exactly or where exactly we see all these monitoring options. So if I go back to dashboard and if I go to Jenkins and I'm looking for this option called load statistics, and if I click on it, as you can see here, it gives you a number of options. But in this case at the moment, now what has happened is I have reset my Jenkins server. So because of which it does not have the history of the load statistics. So that is the reason it is showing a single yellow line. It is not showing anything at the moment. However, if you see at the bottom, if you see here, so the blue one indicates online executors, the red one says busy executors, the gray one says queue length, and the yellow one indicates available executors. So in my case, I do have 2 executors available. So that is the reason this is being shown as yellow and a straight line, because no new job has been started here. Alright, so now is the time to understand how exactly we work with backups and restore in Jenkins. So again, working with backups and doing a backup configuration is pretty straightforward. We have multiple ways of backing up a Jenkins server. We can do it manually by copying the Jenkins home directory, or we can use a plugin as well by the name Backup Manager. So let's first take a look at how exactly we do it manually, and then we will see how to work with the plugin. So what we do is, simply speaking, we just periodically back up the Jenkins home directory, which is nothing but var lib Jenkins in most of the cases, unless you have changed it. The default directory will always be var lib Jenkins. And if it is on Windows machine, then c/Jenkins it should be. And this directory basically contains the build information and the build history and a lot of other things as well. So backing up can be done while Jenkins is running, but Jenkins_home directory, it may contain a very large amount of data, so it will take a lot of time. So ideally, you should be doing it when your Jenkins server is not up and running, or even if it is up and running, at least there is no job running inside Jenkins. And then one more very important folder which you would like to back up, even if you don't back up everything in Jenkins, at least this folder should be there, which is /jobs. So the actual folder path will be var lib Jenkins and then jobs. This directory basically contains the details about the job configuration. So let's say if you have 5, 10, 15 different jobs, all the jobs will be listed here in the form of directories, individual directories, and then the build history for each of the job will be available as well. So again, within the jobs, there will be inside the jobs, there will be multiple directories for each build by that number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, like that it will be. And each build history folder will contain all the details with regards to that build along with the console output as well. and then archived files for each of the build jobs. So basically, all the information with regards to the builds and with regards to the jobs will be there inside /jobs directory. So as we have spoken, there is a subdirectory for each build job within the jobs directory. So there is no need to back up the workspace directory because it will simply be restored with a clean checkout if Jenkins finds it missing. So as we know already, within the varlib Jenkins folder, you have a directory called workspace, which is basically used for cloning the data or any kind of temp folder which you want to use. So that is the folder from where the execution will take place. So that is not exactly required to be copied because that's more like the temp folder specifically for Jenkins. So if Jenkins sees on the new folder that workspace is not there, it will simply go ahead and create a new one and your build will start from scratch. The builds directory contains the history of the builds resulted and previously generated artifacts with a timestamped directory for each previous build. So this one would be important if you want to have the build history from the previous server. You should have a copy of the build directory folder as well. And Jenkins uses the XML and text files to produce the graphs it displays on the build job dashboard. So if these are important for you or for your project, you should copy these files as well. So backing up configuration, again, you have another way of doing it that you can change the Jenkins home directory to somewhere else. So in this example, we are putting it /temp/Jenkins backup. And once you do that, you just need to use this export Jenkins_home equal to /temp/Jenkins backup. When you run this command, basically what it is doing is changing the Jenkins home from varlib Jenkins to temp Jenkins backup. And once that is done, when you run this command with this java -jar jenkins.var --HTTP port equal to 8888, what it will do is it will change the default port of Jenkins from 8080 to 8888. And if needed, you need to check it out. What exactly is the ownership for the Jenkins home folder, which in this case would be /temp/Jenkins-backup. It should be owned by the user Jenkins. If it is not, then just run the chown command with -r flag, which will make sure that all the subdirectories or subfolders as well will be changed the permission for the subdirectories will be changed as well. And Jenkins:Jenkins, which would mean Jenkins as the user and Jenkins as the group. So both the permissions you want to change. So that was about doing the backup in a manual way. Jenkins also provides you one plugin, just like any other task, called backup plugin. So backup plugin provides a very simple user interface that can be used to backup and restore Jenkins configuration and data. So this plugin basically allows you to configure and run backups of both build job configuration and build history. So you can actually define what are the folders you want to keep, for what exactly is the format you want to keep. And with the help of this, actually, when you have this backup manager installed and when you do the backup regularly, what happens is it gives you similar capabilities such as when you have Windows machines and you have something called system restore. So it takes like a snapshot at that point in time, and if needed, let's say sometime in future you have done something and it has messed up your configuration, you just need to revert back to one of these configurations which are already pre-stored for you. So you do a backup on a regular basis, and then you restore to a particular version as and when needed or whenever needed. So this is how it looks like. As you can see here, this is setup screen allows what the content is to be backed up, and it allows you to back up workspace, build history, artifact, and all the other things as well. And you can choose the format, which format you want to use in this case. And file name template is basically what kind of file format you want to give it to. And exclusion will actually provide you an option if you want to exclude anything from this directory or this folder. You can use wildcards or you can use direct file names or folder names. But be careful with the names, because those names, if they're available anywhere in the subdirectory of varlib Jenkins or the Jenkins home folder, basically, it will remove or it will exclude or it will ignore all those files and folders. And once you do that, you always have an option of putting a check mark on these ones. So it will basically help you save the workspace, save the build history, save the fingerprints, and all these things. And once you have done the backup, restoration is also equally easy. Once you have that, it will actually show you in the form of the dropdown, and you just need to basically go to the restore page and choose the date of the configuration to reinstate. So post configuring, reload the Jenkins configuration from disk, or simply restart Jenkins. That's all you need to do. So archiving and migrating the build jobs. So in order to reduce the disk space issues, what we do typically is that we delete or archive the projects that are no longer active. Now deletion is fine, but let's say you do want to keep the projects in such a way that you, if needed, you just want to restore it again. So that is something which is provided by archiving. So archiving a project allows you to easily restore that specific project later on if it's needed to consult the project data or artifacts. To archive a project, you just move the build project directory out of the job directory. That's all you need to do. So if you see here, there is an example given. You have this inside the jobs directory. You have 3 different jobs by the name first Jenkins, Jenkins Fibonacci, and Maven project. So you do a Maven project, you create a tar file out of it, and then you move out the tar file from the main directory and you just remove the folder. That's all you need to do. So you have the tar file. If needed later on, you just put that file back here and just untar it and all the contents, and just once again just restart the Jenkins server and all of the configuration will come back as it was before. So after completion, reload the configuration from the disk in the Manage Jenkins screen. The archived project will disappear from the dashboard. So migrating the build jobs. Sometimes we need to move or copy Jenkins build jobs without copying the entire Jenkins configuration from one Jenkins instance to another. So if we speak about some of the specific possible scenarios, let's say one possible scenario could be moving to new box which have different system configuration compared to original machine. Or you want to restore an old build job that has been archived. So in all these cases, what you need to do is you just need to copy the subdirectory for that project, which will contain all the details about that project, and you just need to copy and paste it to the respective or the desired Jenkins instance. Anything with related to that project will have all the content inside that subdirectory, inside the jobs directory. So by copying or moving the build job directories to the new Jenkins instance, we can copy or move build jobs between instances of the projects. And the project job directory is basically self-contained. It contains both full project configuration and all the build history of it. So if let's say you have run this job for 50 times, so it will have all the details about those 50 builds. Unless of course you have chosen as part of the discard old builds option, if you have chosen that you want to keep only the last 10 or 20 or 30 builds to be kept. So what you do is you navigate to the Manage Jenkins screen and click on Reload Configuration from Disk. And this will simply reload the new job and make sure they are visible on the Jenkins dashboard immediately. So this is one way, or another simple way would be to just go ahead and restart the Jenkins service, which will take care of it as well. So migrating the build jobs. So when you are migrating the jobs to a new Jenkins configuration, install and migrate the plugins also from the original server. So what happens is jobs is one folder where you have all the job related information available. Apart from that, you have a directory called plugins, which contains all the installed plugins information about that Jenkins instance. So as a best practice, when you want to, let's say, migrate the whole thing from one instance to another one, you can copy the plugins directory as well with all of its content. Now, some Jenkins plugins can be a bit buggy sometimes. So then what you can do is in those situations, you don't need to move the plugins folder. You can simply start with a well-defined set of vetted plugins. That way you start with a clean instance of the Jenkins master. So rework on project configurations once they have been imported as a project's config.xml will be updated with plugin specific configuration fields. So config.xml is again inside var lib jenkins /config.xml, and this is the file which is responsible for a lot of standard configuration for the Jenkins master and how does it behave and a lot of other things for Jenkins master. And invalid plugin configurations will be highlighted through warnings or exceptions. Jenkins is smart enough to let you know if there is anything wrong with the plugin configuration. So then you can take action on it. You can remove it. You can reinstall it. You can simply remove the plugin and then do a fresh installation. It should take care of the details. These error messages often mean that the plugin will not work as expected or it will not work at all. So as I said, in those situations, the best way would be to just go ahead and remove the existing plugin and just do a reinstallation afresh, which will, in most of the cases, which will, take care of the problem. So these are the steps to migrate build from one instance to another, and this is the manual way of doing it. So again, the process is, first of all, you need to install Jenkins on the new server. You need to stop both the old and the new Jenkins server. Then go ahead and archive Jenkins_home in old Jenkins instance. You copy it somewhere. You extract it and copy it to the new machine. You go to the new Jenkins machine, copy this zip file to the Jenkins home location, and then once that is done, you just go ahead and restart the Jenkins server and it should take care of it. That is how you work. You can actually go ahead and download the latest Jenkins WAR file, then go ahead and run the command to install it, then browse the local host, wait until the unlock Jenkins page appears, and copy the automatically generated password from the Jenkins console output. So if you don't remember all these steps, we have done it already in the module 2 of this course. So if you have any doubts and if you want to see it how exactly it is done, just refer to module 2, and we have had a detailed discussion on this, how to install a fresh instance of Jenkins. And then, as we have spoken, we have this plugin called Backup Manager, which will help us backup the config files as well. So we can define all the details. We can tell what exactly we want the things to be copied. And then once it is copied, we can simply do a backup, and then we can do a restore as well whenever needed. Apart from that, it gives me options to backup different types of contents such as workspace, history, artifacts, fingerprints, etc. And once we have done the backup, restoration is as easy. You just need to go to you can either create a new Jenkins instance, or you can go to a previously running Jenkins instance, go to Manage Jenkins, make sure you have the Backup Manager installed, and then go to Backup Manager, do a restore configuration, and choose the Jenkins.war file. And that should provide you with this restore configuration. And when you click on the drop down, it will give you the option to choose the date on which you want to restore the configuration. So just choose the correct date or the correct file, and then click on restore. And once it is done, just do a restart of the Jenkins service, and it should take care of the rest. All right, so let's try and understand how exactly we do migration from an existing Jenkins server to a new Jenkins server. So here I am on my existing Jenkins server. And if you remember, this is the server which is ending with 145. So let me go back to this. So I have the command line, and as you can see, this is the machine ending with 145, and this is the machine on which I have Jenkins server up and running. So let's do one thing. This is a new instance on which I want to basically create. What I want to do is I want to migrate all my Jenkins load from this machine, which is ending with 145, to this machine, which is ending with 146. As of now, let me check. As you can see here, it is showing as one of the available packages, but Jenkins is not installed at the moment. So let me go ahead and do the installation, which is super easy. I just need to do a sudo yum install Jenkins. As you can see, it is installing 2.147-1.1 version, which is one of the recent versions. Should not be a problem. I just hit yes. I could have given a -y in the first command itself, but I just wanted to show you that which version is getting installed. It will take a couple of seconds. So while it is doing that, let me go to the Jenkins home directory. At the moment, I am inside Vagrant users home directory. So go to cd var lib Jenkins. This is the Jenkins home page. So one option I have is to take the whole backup of this whole directory, but this sometimes can be messy. So the most important ones, if you see here, are the plugins, jobs. Let me in fact remove this particular file. This I have created as part of when I was checking things. So now I don't have that folder anymore. I'm in that file. So jobs will contain, as we have seen, if I go inside jobs, it will have the one folder corresponding to each job which I have on my GUI. So if I come here, I have Azure, Chef Job, Maven, Build, Maven Project, Pipeline Demo, and Project A. If I come back here, I have all those 6 jobs, and there is one folder for each of these jobs. Let's take a look at Maven Project. So if I go inside Maven Project, I have 3 and 5, 6 files. So of course, config.xml will have all the details about the job. If I go to builds, the first directory, and if I click on LL, as you can see here, I have these directories with numbers. So these ones basically indicate each build for this one. So if I just go in and let's say go inside 5, so that will basically refer to build number 5. And if I go inside, if I do LL again I can see the build.xml, changelog.xml. So all these files are pertaining to that particular build. And if I want to take a look at what exactly contains inside the log, if you see here, this is the same output which we get normally when I go to the console output of that particular build. So this is the place where it gets saved as well for any of the future references. In fact, we can cross-check it with the help of GUI. So if I go to Maven Project, and if I go to build number 5, and if I go to console output, if I just compare the last couple of lines, so finished success, total time taken 3.792 seconds. And if I come back to my output here, so if you see here, total time 3.792 seconds. build success, no test to run. Once again, build success, no test to run. So as you can see here, it is the same console output which is being saved over here. And for each job, for each build, there will be a console output which will be saved here. So what I'll do is I'll just come out of this folder. Okay, so I'm inside jobs now. I have all these folders. I'll come back. So what I'll do now is, let me see if the zip folder is available. Yes, zip utility is there. And what I want to do is I want to create a zip file for everything containing inside the jobs file or jobs folder. So I do a zip -r to make sure that all the subdirectories are taken as well. And I need to give a name. So I give a name as jobs.zip, let's say, and then jobs. I had to prefix a sudo, so looks okay. And if I do login, as you can see here, I have this jobs.zip folder or jobs.zip file available, which of course will contain all the content, whatever is inside this jobs directory. Let me just change the permissions here as well so that I don't face any problem while trying to copy this. Once again, I need to prefix sudo here. So as you can see, it has turned green, which means it has got all the required permissions to read and to execute. It still belongs to root. As of now, that is not a problem because we don't want to use it on this machine. We want to use it on the other machine, which is Mars. So as we can see here, the Jenkins package has been installed successfully. What I want to do now is, so I have started Jenkins, and let me enable it as well so that it is persistent across boots as well. And if I check the status, as you can see, it is up and running. So of course, if I go to my GUI or the browser, I should be able to take access. Now, if you remember, it is ending with 146. So if I go ahead, I should be able to access my Jenkins server. All right, so looks like it has been working. So let me just check if this details. Looks like it has been taken from one of my earlier installations. Probably it was not a clean uninstall, but normally this asks me for one of the existing passwords. And once again, all those things we have already discussed in module 2 of this course. So if you face any problem, if you have any doubts, or if you want a refresher, just go ahead and watch the module 2, how to install and initiate your Jenkins server. Alright, so my Jenkins is up and running. As you can see here, I don't have any jobs at the moment. There is no build history. It's a complete fresh installation of Jenkins. But what I want is, I want to have a replica of this one, right? I want to have a replica of my existing Jenkins server, which is on 145. So as you can see, I have 6 jobs and each job has been run multiple times. Some of the jobs are 39 days old or 3 days old, 2 hours old, 1 day. Most of these are like last 3-4 days I have created. But still, they have got multiple iterations, so multiple builds have been completed for them. So as you can see, Chef job has been run 24 times, Maven project has been run 14 times, and so on. So what I will do now is, I have the Jenkins server up and running. Let me go back to Jenkins main, the first server, the Jupyter, which is ending with 145 IP address. What I'll do is I'll use scp command to copy jobs.zip folder to Mars, which is the other machine. If you see here, the host name is Mars, and I have a Mars configured in my hosts file as well, so it should be able to recognize. In fact, let me just check. Yes, it does identify. As you can see here, it's giving me that it has got the 146 IP. So I just need to do a scp jobs.zip and then vagrant Mars, and let's say I first want to move it to temp folder. So looks like it has been done. If I go to my other Jenkins machine, and if I go ahead and let's go to temp folder first. So as you can see here, jobs.zip is present. Let me move it to, and now if I go to, alright, so I'm here now, and as you can see here, we have a folder called jobs, and there is a jobs.zip file available as well. So what I will do is, I will first remove the jobs folder, which is done. And now what I will do is, I'll do an unzip of jobs. So let me check if unzip is there. Yes, it is present. So I can just do a unzip jobs.zip. I need to fix sudo here. So it has been taken care. Now I have a jobs folder, but there is a small catch. It is owned by root because I used sudo here. So what I need to do is, I need to do sudo chown -r for to make it recursive, and Jenkins jobs. So this will basically make sure that my jobs directory and all the subdirectories are owned by Jenkins and not by root. So if I do LL again, as you can see here, now it looks correct, it looks good. And now if I go inside the jobs folder, as you can see here, I have all those projects present here as well. However, if I do a start now, I still don't see anything. If I do a refresh as well, I don't see anything. If I do manage Jenkins, so one option would be to check on this link, reload configuration from disk. So if I click on this, click on OK, it will basically restart Jenkins. Only thing is the service will not be restarted, but rest of the configuration will be taken again. And as you can see here, I have all these jobs are present now. And as you can see here, it's not only the jobs, but along with the jobs, I have all the iterations present as well. Let's say if I go to Maven project, I can see from build number 5 to build number 14, which is similar or same as using it here. This is my older Jenkins master, and here also I can see from build number 5 to build number 14. Not only that, I have the same timestamp as well for each of the build as well, and I can see the exact console output of what has been done before. So it's exact replica. So as you can see, I have created a new Jenkins server, but I still have the old data, and I can see all the history of the jobs and of each build what has been done before. So this is the manual way of doing things. Now let's take a look at how we can do that with the plugin which is provided by Jenkins. So once again, I move back to my old Jenkins master, go to manage Jenkins, and let's go ahead and go to manage plugins, go to available section, type backup. As you can see here, I have the first option saying backup or restore your Hudson configuration files. For the people who don't know, Hudson is the old name for Jenkins, or at least almost old name for Jenkins. There is a history behind it. If you want to know more about it, you just type in Google and you will get the history of how exactly Hudson became Jenkins. It's an interesting story and worth knowing. Alright, so I'll install this backup plugin, click on install without restart. As you can see here, it has got a couple of plugins. Disk usage is one of them, which we have installed already as part of our initial demo. It will also install Windows slaves and external monitor job type, which is done already. Now it is going ahead with backup, which is also complete as we speak. And since, as you can see here, we can start using the installed plugins right away. So there is no restart required for the Jenkins instance. So I go back to Jenkins main page. And now if I click on manage Jenkins, and if I scroll down, this is what I get to see, backup manager. So this is what we have installed just now. If I click on backup manager, first thing I need to do is do a setup. So if I click on setup, it gives me all these options. So what I can do is I can go ahead and let's say I can put that. So basically it is telling me the Hudson root directory. So the root directory is varlib Jenkins. Where do I want to keep the backup? So let's say I want to keep it as under temp backup, or maybe Jenkins and then backup, let's say. It is asking me the zip file or tar-bz2, so any one of them I can choose. I'll stick to zip. File name template, again I'm telling Jenkins to give the format as backup_date.extension. And once again I'll have all these options, so backup, job workspace, build history, etc. And once I do that, I just need to click on save. So my setup is complete. That's how easy it is. And once that is done, I just need to click on backup Hudson configuration. So it will tell me that Jenkins is going to shut down. But again, there is no job is running, so it will do it immediately. Normally, if you have any kind of job running inside Jenkins, it will basically wait for those jobs to be stopped and then it will do the backup. It is going to take a couple of seconds. So let me just pause the video and then we will start once this is backup. Here we are, and the backup has been completed. It has taken full about 7 to 8 minutes to complete this backup. And as you can see here, the backup has been completed and ended at so and so time. So 1955 it started and 2001. So approximately 6 minutes were taken to complete this backup. So once that is done, we are good to go. We click on backup manager. And as you can see here, now it will be showing as available backup in temp Jenkins backup. And once you click on this link, you select this and click on launch restore, and then you can just go ahead and it will take care of the restore process for us. Now, since we don't need to do that, we have not made any changes, but it's just as easy as clicking some buttons. That's all. So you can choose any one of the ways. You can either choose to do it manually, which is again fine. You can just put those commands in as a cron tab entry, and then you can just keep it regularly. You can put it somewhere else using SCP. You can put it in the same instance, or it would be better if you keep it somewhere else in some other instance. So if needed, you can just copy the folder back. And if you have the full home folder for Jenkins, you can pretty much practically create another Jenkins instance with the same details, with exactly all the same things. It's as easy as copying and pasting, unzipping, and simply restarting the Jenkins service. If not, you don't want to take the pain, you just use the backup manager, and it's again as easy as clicking some buttons. So now one more thing, let's say if you want to, since we have put the backup on this machine, so we are getting the option to restore again on the same machine. However, if let's say I want to restore those details onto a different machine, then again process is as simple. I just go to the first machine, and if I go to temp, I should have that folder created. As you can see here, Jenkins. If I Jenkins, I have this backup, and if I do, as you can see, this backup.zip has been created. So I just need to copy this file to the new file or new instance over here at a specific location, and then I just need to install the plugin, which is a backup manager plugin, once again on this machine. And then if I put at a specific location, and then it will come as one of the options to restore that backup as well. That's about the backup and restore. Let's see what else do we have in a store. All right, so the next topic is Jenkins best practices, or some of the do's and don'ts when you're working with Jenkins on a daily basis. The first one is, of course, you should secure your Jenkins instance and make sure that it is secured with user credentials. You always have an option of running Jenkins without user credentials, but that is not recommended at all. So make sure you go to configure global security and properly configure the authentication and authorization for Jenkins instances. And you should authenticate users and enforce access control to a Jenkins instance, which is basically through configure global security. You should always break down the jobs. You should not keep your jobs very long. If needed, you can always create an upstream downstream projects, right? So you can create multiple jobs, job A, B, C, D, and then you can tie them up in such a way that once job A is complete, it will trigger job B, and then B will trigger job C, and C will trigger job D, and so on. So because to perform multiple tasks in a single Jenkins job is not ideal, it's not always a good idea. So break up a single build process into smaller steps by creating a pipeline so that each have its own responsibilities. And with this, the feedback is faster and more specific. It also helps you in, if let's say there is something wrong with the process and overall, when the build fails. Now, since you can put notification mechanism at the end of every job, so it'll be easy for the person or the people who are the stakeholders to identify where exactly things have gone wrong, and they can quickly fix the issues. Next is quite obvious. You should always back up your Jenkins home regularly. If any configuration changes happens accidentally, then the Jenkins backup can be used to restore. And to ensure reliable, optimized production operation with Jenkins, backups are definitely needed. You should also make sure that there is no resource collision. So multiple jobs running at the same time often causes collisions if they set up some kind of service or need exclusive access. This is where we make use of our distributed builds, and you can have multiple slaves for multiple types of jobs. You can always put different jobs onto different slaves with the help of labels. That is always an option. So, and also you can avoid build collisions, and what you can do is you can allocate a different port for parallel project builds. That is also one of the options. Of course, you should set up proper email notifications mapping to developers in the project so that everyone in the team is up to date on the project's status. And yes, all these stakeholders should be notified so that whenever something happens, whenever something goes wrong, all these stakeholders are notified ASAP so that they can take quick actions and they can take necessary steps to ensure that failures are reported as soon as possible and fixed by the respective team members. Clean builds, this basically means that your build should always start from scratch. So you should always have an option of using the discard builds, or this should always be a clean build. So basically you start from the source code. So because that will always ensure that you have the latest code to be built, and it will also ensure that the build is reproducible. So in a nutshell, clean builds are the most reliable builds. So generate trend reports. So trends helps you to quickly analyze progress state of the project. So you can configure jobs to generate trend reports and automated testing when running a testing job. And this testing surely helps to achieve desired quality. Use of labels. So of course, in order to make your build more diversified, and if you have a very big cluster, of multiple build slaves. So labeling is very important. So one way to do this is using labels to a particular node. So that way you have one label and you have behind that label you have multiple nodes, and it helps you in load balancing as well if you have a lot of jobs of similar nature. And labels helps teams to identify the uniqueness of each node and use it for the right purpose. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the Jenkins best practices, as well as it brings us to the end of this module overall. So to summarize in this module, what we have learned is how to maintain, administer and backup Jenkins instance. What are the do's and don'ts in Jenkins? And then we spoke about how to take backup of Jenkins and migrating Jenkins from one server to another. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.